transition to the latter part of our episode, Justice Carpio, I just want to ask you on this. One area, though, where China is hurting us is through this. I don't know if I can still call it gray zone because they're injuring already our servicemen and damaging our vessels and ship and degrading our supply capabilities. So nasaan na tayo dito sa gray zone tactics naman ng China at anong direction natin ngayon? At most recently, we had this incident whereby they're even intercepting yung mga supply natin, and we had to use fast-paced, fast-speed boats. Nasaan po tayo ngayon dun sa baba in terms of the fight on the ground right now, tactically speaking? Yeah.
Well, you will recall that the former commander of the Indo-Pacific Forces testified before the U.S. Congress that he said that if the use of water cannon will result in the death of a Philippine Coast Guard personnel or Philippine Navy personnel, then that could trigger the operation of the Mutual Defense Treaty. And President Marcos Jr. reiterated that in Shangri-La. So I think we're developing a new interpretation of what is needed to trigger the Mutual Defense Treaty, that it need not be an armed attack. You can use water cannon, it's not considered armed, but if it results in a death, then it can trigger the treaty. That is really addressed to the gray zone operations of China. In other words, you conduct gray zone operations, but if it results in a death of a Philippine Coast Guard personnel or Philippine Navy personnel, then the treaty will apply. So that is the deterrence now. China will have to take this into consideration. Every time it uses its gray zone tactics, they will have to be careful that a Filipino Navy or Coast Guard personnel will not die. And so they will have to be careful. And I think it's a very good policy. I can see that the U.S. started that, and we echoed that. We said, okay, in effect, we agree to that when President Marcos Jr. Mentioned that in the Shangri-La speech. No? So we are addressing the gray zone tactics in that way.
So what you're saying is that now we have moved into an output rather than modality-oriented understanding of the parameters of Mutual Defense Treaty, right? Because when you talk about gray zone, it's really modality, right? Na hindi ka gumagamit ng naval firepower, you're just using your, I don't know, Coast Guard, whatever. But now, ang sinasabi natin is, wala akong paki anong ginagamit mo. If you end up killing someone belonging to the Philippine Armed Forces or using a public vessels, then you're gonna. So this is a radical reinterpretation, right, of the parameter, in a sense that we're allowing them not to use the modality effacement. We're looking at the output here. Very good point, Justice Carpio. I agree with you on.
Yeah, this will really address the gray zone tactic. This will address, because they will be careful in firing the water cannon now. That water cannon has a very strong pressure. When it hits your chest, you could die. So they will now be very careful.
Yeah, I mean that's why I asked the Commodore Trinidad. I mean, if this was a punching power, is this Tyson or Pacquiao? He said the two combined, and we know that Tyson alone could kill people with a punch, right? So imagine Tyson and Pacquiao together, right? So that just tells you that masyadong limited kung titignan lang natin ano yung ginagamit ng China. Dapat titignan din natin yung epekto nito.
Yes, that's correct.
Patay ito ng mga Pilipino or something like that. So now you're telling China, oh, be careful with what you're doing here, because I know you have been playing around the law. You're looking at the gray zone in the law, but we're also looking at the effect of what you're doing. So if something goes wrong here, it's on you. Even if may palusot ka na hindi ka gumagamit ng firepower or military in a strict sense of the word. That's a very good point. And do you think we will see indications that China is going to recalibrate in the coming months? Because there's another angle. Just sorry, the other angle I'm hearing is, eto na, Baguio season na. May excuse ng China na hindi na maghanas dyan.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm looking at what China will do now, because they've been warned already by the US and by the Philippines, and this is now official reinterpretation of the Mutual Defense Treaty when it will be triggered. And I think this is a very good deterrent to the gray zone tactics of China.
Thank you for that. And I'm hopeful that China will be rational enough to see the wisdom of not continuing with its current course. What is the reasonable de-escalation you can see here? Because President Marcos Jr. is also indicating, and this is the context that, also of our conversation before this episode off the record, was etong threat for the Philippines to go for additional legal warfare. For President Marcos Jr. to talk about relevant provisions of international law, treaties, even historical maps, etc., which I think is something that went down with you, Justice Carpio. So pasado sa Carpio index, right? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, the Chinese have said repeatedly, you go to their website in the local embassy of China and their foreign ministry, and in their submission to the arbitration in The Hague, they said Philippine territory is governed by 3 treaties, and all islands outside the Paris Treaty lines do not belong to the Philippines. Because that said, that is your treat. Those are the treaties that regulate. Mali sila eh. Because the Treaty of Washington says any and all islands belonging to the Philippine archipelago lying outside the lines were also ceded to the U.S. by Spain. But the problem is our own public intellectuals in the Philippines, like Stelito Mendoza, he wrote an article in the Philda Journal that Philippine territory is limited to the islands within the Paris Treaty lines. And this was echoed by Dean Father Bernas of the Ateneo Law School, and also lately by Senator Enrile, who's now the Presidential Legal Counsel. And that's why the Chinese have been saying, oh, Philippine territory is limited to the islands within the treaty lines, which is factually, legally, and historically false, wrong.
Mali din tayo on our side. So we have to call that out. Thank you for calling it out.
Yeah, that's why I've been saying our narrative is completely wrong. We have to be on the same page. We must know what's our narrative. And that is why I've been giving lectures on this, that we have to correct this. I call this the greatest misconception in Philippine history, that Philippine territory is limited to the treaty lines, to the islands within the treaty lines of Paris. That was exactly altered, amended by the Treaty of Washington of 1900, 2 years after the 1898 Treaty of Paris. They amended it and to say that it also included, because when the Americans arrived in the Philippines, they found out that there were many islands of the Philippine archipelago lying outside the lines. And in Cebuto, Cagayan de Sulu, the Spanish garrisons, they refused to vacate because they said we're outside the treaty lines. And that's why they had to sign that second treaty. And the U.S. had to pay an additional $100,000 for the second treaty to clarify that the cession included everything else, all the islands of the Philippine archipelago. And if you look at the map of 1734, the first official map of Philippine territory under the Spanish regime, Scarborough Shoal and the Spanish are part of Philippine territory until the last official map of 1875. The last official map of the Philippine territory under the Spanish regime was the 1875 Carta General, the Archipelago Filipino, map of the Philippine archipelago. And it shows there Scarborough Shoal, very clear, Scarborough Shoal. And the Spratlys are part of Philippine territory. It has names, Tito Island, that's the name. It's there, Ituaba is there. So
but Justice, where the heck is this coming from? Because Mendoza, he was there at the forefront of our efforts to, rally archipelagic states during the UNCLOS negotiation. I think this is UNCLOS 2. JPE, I mean, another supposedly smart lawyer, was part of the Marcos Sr. regime. And the Marcos Sr. regime was actually the one that really helped us consolidate our position on the ground. So what the heck is going on here? Is there
Well,
something else happening here that I don't know?
they forgot about the 1900 Treaty of Washington. They forgot that there was a second treaty to correct the errors in the Treaty of Paris. But we were never taught that. We were always taught the Treaty of
Of Paris,
Paris.
yeah, and yung square na totally
Yes,
ridiculous in
and the
international law.
lines,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
famous lines. But those famous lines have actually been amended by the Treaty of Washington.
Right.
But we forgot all about that. And our legal luminaries have been saying this, that we're limited to the islands within the
Yeah.
treaty lines. And so the Chinese hear this and they say, oh,
Music to their ear, yeah.
yeah. That's
Um,
exactly what Wang Yi, he spoke at the CSIS in Washington, D.C., and before diplomats from all over the world. He said, Philippine territory is governed by the Treaty of Paris, the Treaty of Washington, and the Treaty with the British, and all islands outside the treaty lines do not belong to the Philippines. I mean, because he
Yeah.
followed the Estelito Mendoza, Father Bernas, and Senator Enrile, and everybody else who kept on pointing to the treaty lines. And even our friends in the left who are defending China, that China owns the Spratlys and Scarborough Shoal, that's their point also.
Yeah. Well, I know personally na may ganyan strategy in China na hanapin nila some statement by some North Vietnamese official when Vietnam was desperately in need of China.
Yes.
They said maybe something that relevant, and then they're gonna extrapolate that and then excavate that and then say, oh, see, you Vietnamese are saying that. So that's what I'm saying. Dapat ingat yung mga tao nandito sa Pilipinas who have some stature and our thought leaders, because gagamitin ng China against ourselves. So, Justice Carr, do you think there should be a floor here in terms of, like, I don't go around the region and here, I don't know, in Singapore, people arguing against their own territorial integrity to the benefit of Malaysia or Indonesia. I don't go to Vietnam nowadays hearing someone saying, oh, no, this is for China. Only in the Philippines I hear that. What the heck is going on here?
Yeah, I think we have to have a common narrative already. We have to, because it's also in the Constitution of 1935, our territory is governed by treaties, but people just look at the Treaty of Paris. They don't bother looking at the Treaty of Washington, which is very clear. The text of the Treaty of Washington says, any and all islands belonging to the Philippine archipelago lying outside the lines of the Treaty of Paris. So it's very clear that Philippine territory is not limited to the islands within the treaty lines. But they have forgotten about that. I mean, I don't know. And we have misled China. And because of that, China said, oh, those islands are outside the 118 degrees longitude in the West Philippine Sea. So these islands do not belong to you. That's why I was very happy when President Marcos Jr. stated that in the Shangri-La speech, that our territory is not governed only by the Treaty of Paris, but also by the Treaty of Washington, which includes islands that transcend the treaty lines, that go beyond the treaty lines. I was so happy about that because this is the first time that there was an official statement by any president of the Philippines that, we are not limited to the treaty lines, because that is historically, legally, and factually correct.
You think
and I hope that our
out?
legal luminaries, like Estelito Mendoza, like Enrile, well, Father Bernas said, those who are still living should correct it, because we have to be on the same page. I think it's their duty to our country, to present and future generations of Filipinos, that they must correct this. And I'm very happy that officially that is now the position, because that's an official statement of the chief architect of foreign policy, the president.
Yeah, but the reason I say there should be a floor is because paano kung biglang iba na yung chief architect? I mean, the vice president comes from a totally different persuasion from my understanding. So how do we create that? Are you going to write an article about this dun sa column nyo, Justice Inquirer? Just I think
I've been giving a lecture on this already.
Yeah,
and
but
I'm uploading it soon in
please,
YouTube.
Please, yeah, so that I can also share with folks. Basahin din nila. I really appreciate the reiteration and all. I mean, I am troubled to see that some people of certain stature are spreading potentially misinformation. Definitely not disinformation, but misinformation could also undermine our national interests, and that's something
But
important. Mm.
there's another thing, Richard. Our
Yes.
friends in the left are saying that that the Japan Taipei Treaty of 1952 awarded the Paracels, the Spratlys, and Scarborough Shoal to China. There's no such thing because the Treaty of Taipei came 1 year after the Treaty of San Francisco. The main treaty was the San Francisco Peace Conference Treaty, where the motion of the USSR to award the Paracels and Spratlys to China was defeated overwhelmingly by 46-3, I think. So in the final text of the Treaty of San Francisco, they said Japan renounced its claim to the Spratlys and the Paracels, period. There was no award.
Yeah, no handing over to China or anyone else. Exactly,
And
you're right. Tama lang yung first part, but there's no
And-
misinformation na yan. Yeah.
And in the Treaty of Taipei 1 year later, because China was not represented in the San Francisco Peace Conference because there was a civil war. But the Americans told the Japanese, you have to sign a separate treaty with the Republic of China in Taiwan, in Taipei. So they signed, and that treaty says, in accordance with the Treaty of San Francisco of 1951, the Japan renounces its claim to the Spratlys and the Paracels, period. There was no award. And the Japan could not have given the Spratlys and the Paracels to Taiwan because it already renounced its claim 1 year earlier. I don't know why Filipinos keep on saying that in the Treaty of Taipei, Japan awarded the Paracels and the Spratlys to China. It's really a complete nonsense. It's totally contrary to the facts and the law.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Talagang kailangan natin, we have to fight strongly against misinformation and disinformation on this because the Chinese keep on relitigating this case, right? Going back to it, distorting things, kind of like Trump relitigating his own case recently. Oh, the judge was questionable. Oh, the DOJ was, they keep on doing that. So it's very important we have a strong grip on the basic facts. Last point, Justice Carpio, obviously, I want to come back to you later on also in this month because this is a National Independence Month, our national flag and everything like that. So there are lots of things going on right now. Let me ask you, Justice Carpio, nasaan ulit si Kibuloy? Just kidding. Justice Carpio, what do you think should happen? I mean, finally, we have a president again who's saying sensible things, right? He's Ferdinand Marcos Jr., so obviously my baggage dyan. Finally, the Philippines is making a strong stance on this issue. But obviously, you need a whole of nation approach, right? If the Philippines wants to stand a chance in the West Philippine Sea and also as a rising middle power in the 21st century. What do you want to happen in the Philippines in the coming years, Justice Carpio? Ano mga kailangan gawin? Anong dapat na mga gagawin ng mga thought leaders, influential people, scholars, and policymakers to make sure na we have a floor. We have a floor na hindi mambo-jumbo lang sinasabi ng iba dyan at we don't litigate the case against ourselves or relitigate the case and history against ourselves. I mean, this is a weird situation we have in the Philippines.
Well, the number one thing is what I said earlier, that we must have a common narrative on what is our territory. I mean, that's basic for a state.
Facts-based narrative,
fact-based.
not just a narrative. Yeah,
It's basic that we must know the extent of our territory. We should not be quarreling whether this island belongs to the Philippines or not. We should be on one page. And because if we are not united here, if some people, some Philippines will say, no, we don't own the Spratlys, China will use that against us. And it's using it against us. So to win against China, we must be on the same page as to what is the extent of Philippine territory. It's so basic, Richard. A state is composed of one, territory, people, government, sovereignty. if we don't know our territory, why do we call ourselves a state? Let us be one. Let us decide what exactly is the Philippine
Let
territory.
us be province of China. I mean, Justice Carpio, come on. I mean, we had a very good proposal by the former President Digong. I want to end on
And-
this note because how important it is for us to elect the right people to government, including these upcoming 2025 elections, because a number of people so far within the Magic 12 of surveys, SWS, are notoriously silent on the West Philippine Sea, or even worse, they have been purveyors of Chinese disinformation against the Philippine national interest. How important is for people to fight the good fight? Are we going to see Team Philippines versus Team China in 2025 elections? Sorry for putting you on the spot, but I think we're getting near to the election season. So I think we have to ask these questions.
Well, that's why it's very important that we have to put the West Philippines issue as part of the election issue. We have to ask every candidate to the Senate, what is your position on the West Philippine Sea? We have to ask them.
Well, I'm sure the others
But-
would say, yeah.
But we have to be careful. Somebody might say, "Oh, I will ride a jet ski and I will plant the flag and I will challenge the Chinese guard to a duel." I mean, we have to be careful with people like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure some other person would say, well, nagsuot naman ako ng West Philippine Sea shirt nung Gilas Pilipinas laban sa China sa FIBA World Cup. So kalimutan nyo na lahat ng mga pro-Tatay Digong na sinabi ko. And then we have some of the other ones who was a political advisor of Digong and now suddenly pro-Quad and pro-West Philippine Sea. But just as you said naman, di ba, we'll take any friend we can get. So I don't know, you're maybe more I don't know, forgiving than me. Pero ako naman, ayoko lang mabudol tayo ulit, diba? Come this elections naman,
Well,
diba?
I don't want to be told again that pag naniwala kayo sa akin, stupid kayo.
I like the honesty. I mean, he's honest, right? I'm just saying, there's always the option of being province of China, as the great former President Duterte said. So Justice Carpio, don't worry too much. Wag na natin pag-usapan itong kasaysayan natin and everything like that. Thank you so much, Justice Carpio. I'm sorry we started a little bit late. I think there was a slight misinformation, not miscommunication on what exact time we're going to start. But I really appreciate Justice Carpio. Please continue to take care of yourself, your health, your well-being, and your power and strength, because your passion is very inspiring. And I'll tell you, Justice Carpio, I think people really appreciate also this more casual side of you. Kasi parati nila nakikita yung very, juridically appropriate version. So please keep your humor also, Justice Carpio. Mabuhay po kayo, and thank you so much, and hope we can have you back soon on our different platforms.
Richard. Yeah, thank you also, Richard. Thank you to our viewers.
Pleasure po. God bless. Talk to you soon po.